More Bracketology presented by Upwork, and we got the West Coast Conference Championship game tonight, a rematch of St. Mary's taking down the Zags in snap of their 17-game winning streak a little over a week ago. Gonzaga a 12.5-point favorite tonight in the WCC Championship game. A win likely locks up the #1 overall seed. St. Mary's a projected 5 seed right now, according to our Jerry Palm. The Gales with great defense, the Zags the #1 scoring offense in the country. Like it always seems to be, Gonzaga against St. Mary's for the West Coast Conference Championship. Let's bring in Jerry Palm, our bracketologist, and Gary Parrish. Gary, this is a big game tonight for Gonzaga because before all these power conference tournaments go, they could pretty much lock up the #1 overall seed tonight. If St. Mary's wins, though, how might that screw things up for the Zags?
Well, I think it could then lead to a situation where Gonzaga is still a #1 seed, but perhaps not the #1 overall seed, particularly if Baylor were to go on and win the Big 12 tournament and or if Arizona were to go on and win the Pac-12 tournament. So, this isn't a high-stakes conference tournament championship game like you get in a one-bid league. No matter what happens tonight, Gonzaga and St. Mary's will both be in the NCAA tournament. But if Gonzaga wants to be the #1 overall seed in the bracket for the second consecutive year, they might need to win this game. And for St. Mary's, if you win it, you can make a strong case that the Gales should get a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament because they would then have 2 wins over Gonzaga and 0 losses outside of Quadrant 1.
This is probably as good as the West Coast Conference has ever been. 4 teams in the field right now, according to Jerry Palm. BYU hanging by a thread among the last 4 in, but they're done. They lost in the quarterfinals. Jerry, what does BYU have to do? What has to happen, I guess I should say, for BYU to remain in your field?
Yeah, BYU needs to root for, Indiana to beat Michigan because I think Indiana is the weaker of those 2 teams. Indiana might also have to beat Illinois to make the NCAA tournament. That might not be true of Michigan. They're going to be rooting for an Iowa-Rutgers game won by the Hawkeyes to take out Rutgers. You're rooting basically against SMU, all of these teams at the bottom of the bracket, and then also rooting for Davidson in the Atlantic 10 because the most likely scenario for the Atlantic 10 to get 2 bids is if someone besides Davidson wins the conference tournament. So there's a lot of things in play that could work for BYU, but all they can do is sit on their couches and root for them.
Yeah, I don't like this spot for BYU. It's like being in the clubhouse on a golf course. You've posted your score, but you know that other people have a really good chance of passing you. As always, we'll see. Jerry just laid it out, what BYU and BYU fans need to be rooting for, but my guess is the bubble will shrink between now and Selection Sunday. Some bubble teams will get the wins they need to pass the Cougars, and BYU will perhaps enter the NIT as the favorite.
We have 1 auto bid being handed out tonight in the West Coast Conference, but 5 others in likely 1-bid leagues. Jerry, when you look at the auto bids tonight, what's wetting your whistle?
Oh, I'm looking forward to the Colonial. That always gives us a lot of a pretty good team, usually in the NCAA tournament, a team that could win a game. I don't know if that's going to be the case today because the top seed is out, but this is still probably going to be a fun game to watch. And I think that that's a team that's going to get a seed, maybe a 14 against a 3 seed that could be dangerous if they catch the right 3 seed.
All right, so 6 auto bids tonight. A lot of tickets punched. Going to be a lot of fun. ACC Tournament getting underway this afternoon in Brooklyn. Higher seeds don't play until later in the week. Wake Forest, one of those higher seeds. They've got the Coach of the Year. They've got the Player of the Year. But, Jerry, they're not in your field yet. What more do they need to do to get in?
Well, they're probably going to have to beat Miami, and I suppose hope that Miami doesn't get beat before they get to them. But that's a 4-5 game. It's funny. The ACC has got a 4-5 game that could actually be an elimination game. It certainly would be for Wake Forest. If they can't beat Miami in what would be, I think, 3 tries, and they didn't beat North Carolina, then, there's not much of a case for Wake Forest, who played a very poor non-conference schedule, and that's coming back to bite them because they don't have the kind of opportunities that they need to actually play their way into the NCAA tournament before now.
Chris, you mentioned Wake Forest has the ACC Coach of the Year in Steve Forbes, the ACC Player of the Year in Alondas Williams. So they got two major award winners, but only one Quadrant 1 win. And I think Jerry's got this exactly right. They've got to win their first game in the ACC tournament against Pitt or Boston College, and then they've got to beat Miami on Thursday. They still have work to do. Regardless of where this ends up, it's been a remarkable turnaround for Steve Forbes. I mean, this team, they only won 6 games last season. 6-16 was the final record. Right now they're 23-8. It is an incredible turnaround. And Jerry mentioned the strength of schedule. Some of that, frankly, in defense of Steve Forbes, was I think he thought his team could be good. I don't think he thought his team could be this good. Nobody thought his team would be this good. And when you're playing in a league that is traditionally strong like the ACC, even if it's not that strong this season, if you've got a team that you're still trying to grow with, you want to schedule wins in the non-conference portion of your schedule. So he didn't schedule to make an NCAA tournament resume as much as he scheduled to just get wins. As it turns out, he's got a team that's good enough to be in the NCAA tournament, but they've got to enhance that resume, and that means, I think, at least 2 wins this week.
It wasn't too long ago the ACC was far and away the best conference in basketball, but only 4 of 15 teams in that conference currently in Jerry's field. Historically speaking, Jerry, has the ACC ever been considered this weak?
Well, I'm an old guy, and I don't remember the ACC ever being this weak. It's the worst that this league has been in decades, and yet they still have a team that could win the whole thing. I mean, Duke is a very good team. They can't be a 1 seed, I don't think, because their league hasn't given them the kinds of wins that help them normally build a 1 seed type resume. But Duke is a dangerous team in the NCAA tournament. After that, it's nothing but bottom of the bracket teams. Notre Dame, North Carolina, maybe Wake Forest, maybe Miami. We'll see. But the gap between Duke and the rest of this league is astounding that this could happen in the ACC.
Yeah, I get asked every once in a while when you do various radio hits, like, why is the ACC down? The truth is, this isn't hard to figure out. Virginia is down. Louisville is down. Syracuse is down. Those are 3 big brand basketball programs, all of which have won national championships in my adult life in the past 20 years. And they're all down to varying degrees in this season. So when your big brands aren't big performers in a season, your league is going to take a hit. And that's why, Louisville has got to find a successor to Chris Mack who can get that program back to a good place. Syracuse has got to figure out how they're handling the end of Jim Boeheim's career. There's no indication he's going to retire after this season or be pushed out, but that program obviously is not where it has historically been. And then Virginia, for Tony Bennett, it's just a talent problem. Virginia is a team that most people had in the top 30 in the preseason, but I can remember talking about this on the Eye on College Basketball podcast back in October, early November. If you just looked at Virginia's roster, there is no way you would consider them an NCAA tournament team, except for the fact that Tony Bennett is the coach. What we found out this season is even Tony Bennett needs real ACC talent to flourish in the ACC.
4 teams in the field, but only 1 real lock, and that's Duke. The other 3 teams currently double-digit seeds in Jerry's field of 68. Let's move on to another conference that, quote-unquote, is a little bit down this season. It's the A-10, because this is a conference that's used to having multiple bids in the NCAA tournament. The tournament begins Wednesday in D.C., the conference tournament, that is. Is there a single lock in the field, though, for the A-10, Jerry? Davidson as a 10 seed right now, your automatic qualifier, VCU among your first 4 out.
Yeah, I like Davidson's chances of making the field if they can avoid a bad loss, before they get really going in this tournament. Then I think Davidson will be okay. But yes, to get a second team in, the best case scenario is for someone else to win the conference tournament. VCU is certainly capable. St. Bonaventure is probably capable. I'd watch out for Dayton, a very talented young team. If it's not over their head yet to play in that event, I think that's a team to watch out for too. But VCU Davidson final might also put both teams in. But really the best chance is for somebody besides Davidson to win this conference tournament.
Yeah, I think as long as Davidson wins the A-10 tournament, the A-10 is probably going to be a one-bid league, because the issue facing VCU and Dayton, both of which are legitimate bubble teams, I guess, is that they can't add a quadrant one win until they play Davidson, and they won't play Davidson until very deep into this bracket. And so, Davidson being the only top 50 team in the net in the A-10 is a real problem for these other A-10 bubble teams. If Davidson loses somewhere along the way, then I think the A-10 is a two-bid league. But if Bob McKillott's team goes on and wins this A-10 tournament, then I think the A-10, they're just only going to put one team in the bracket.
All right, continue to talk bubble teams here as we get ready to ramp up the tournaments this week. Florida beginning the SEC tournament against Texas A&M. Then they would have a matchup against Auburn. So their work is cut out for them. Jerry, you see that as a path in. But can Florida get in the tournament short of winning those two games?
Probably not. It's kind of like the Michigan-Indiana game. Texas A&M has played a little better of late, and this is an elimination game. And then the winner's guaranteed nothing except a shot at Auburn and a shot to play their way into the field. Florida would probably have to beat Auburn. I don't think their resume is strong enough to just beat Texas A&M and say that's enough, we're going to be in the bracket. I think they have to beat Auburn, and that's a tall task, but they've already done it once.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. I mean, Florida adding a win over Texas A&M is not going to do much for the resume. And the Gators, I mean, they've had plenty of opportunities, but they're 2-9 in quadrant one games this season. Obviously beating Auburn would only get them to 3-9, so that's still not great, but that might be enough to get them to the right side of the bubble. Anything short of that, anything of them upsetting Auburn in their second game of the SEC tournament is going to have Florida participating in the NIT.
Gary and Jerry, Gary Parrish, Jerry Palm, Bracketology here on CBS Sports HQ. Championship week continues. You can hear Gary and Matt Norlander on the Ion College Basketball Podcast. They're just releasing a bunch of individual podcasts over the last couple of days, previewing each major tournament. Pac-12, Big East, ACC, Big Ten, all available right now to listen to.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.